Let us begin with a new unit which deals with a few concepts from thermodynamics, namely the ideal heat engine or Carnot engine, the basic working principle and expression for the efficiency of this engine is to be discussed. The next topic is going to deal with second law of thermodynamics. And the third topic discusses few basic concepts regarding entropy. So let us start our discussion by trying to understand the basic concepts related to Carnot engine. Before that, we must define the basic function of an engine. That is, what is the purpose of an engine and how does it work? We must understand that engine is basically a machine, and this machine produces work, or we can say it as external mechanical work, at the expense of consuming some heat from a reservoir. While doing so, it is possible that it dissipates heat during this process to some other reservoir. If we try to understand this using a block diagram, we can see that suppose this is an engine. In order to perform work, since work is done by the engine, we are representing by an outward arrow. It has to draw some amount of heat, say Q1, since heat is absorbed by the engine or heat enters the engine. It is represented by an inward arrow, and it borrows that heat Q1 from a heat source which can supply continuous flow of heat to this engine. And let us say that this heat source is at some temperature T1. Now after performing work, the whatever heat is remaining, say Q2, is thrown away to another reservoir called as heat sink. Let us say the sink is at temperature T2. Now it appears obvious that since in order to make this process possible, T1 has to be greater than T2 always. Common experience says that heat flows from a body at higher temperature to a body at lower temperature, and we can see that the direction of flow of heat is in this particular direction from source to sink. So for obvious reasons, T1 has to be greater than T2. But at the end of this discussion, we will also see why this is a mathematically required condition as well. If we try to apply first law of thermodynamics to this, which deals with the principle of conservation of energy, this particular system must conserve the total heat or total energy. That is, the total heat represented by an inward arrow or the total energy represented by an inward arrow must be equal to total energy represented by outward arrows. That is, Q1 has to be equal to Q2 plus W. So we can see that work done by this engine is just Q1 minus Q2. we must remember that we are discussing the theoretical ideal case. So these sources of heat, the source and sink of heat both are of infinite heat capacity. What does that mean? That they require infinite amount of heat in order to change their temperature, which is obviously not possible because we cannot supply infinite heat to any body. So that also means that the temperatures T1 and T2 remain the same throughout the process. That is the meaning of the term infinite heat capacity. Now, in order to measure the quality of this engine, we can define a new quantity called as thermal efficiency of this engine. Now, for an engine to be efficient enough, anyone would require that engine takes least amount of heat Q1 from the source and performs most of the work. So Q1 has to be as small as possible and W has to be as large as possible for an engine to be efficient. So if we denote this efficiency by letter eta, this eta has to be directly proportional to W and has to be inversely proportional to Q. So if we combine these two, we can simply define eta as W upon Q1. We are writing it as Q1 since in our case the heat absorbed by the system or the heat engine is Q1. This is how we define the efficiency. Now if we use this definition of W here, we get Q1 minus Q2 upon Q1, or simply 1 minus Q2 upon Q1. This is just another alternate expression for the term thermal efficiency. If we are provided with or know the heat absorbed and heat expelled by the heat engine. Another term which is relevant in this discussion is called as working substance. Since we have claimed that this engine performs work, there has to be a working substance present inside this engine. Now this working substance is capable of expansion when we supply heat to it. So this expansion itself is going to perform the work which is claimed to be work done by the heat engine. Now typical examples of working substance which are commonly known are steam, petrol, diesel. Even air can also work as a working substance, basically any gas in general. Then in modern technology, even the hydrogen can also act as a working substance which is used in rocket propulsion. Even the nuclear fuel can act as a working substance. But of course, these modern engines are belonging to some other category of engines which we are not going to discuss in our syllabus. So let us visiting the actual working cases, practical working cases of heat engine, namely steam engine, petrol engine and diesel engine and so on. We have to first discuss the theoretical heat engine. which was first brought into picture by Sadi Carnot in say 1824. Now this engine is very simple. Its working is simple in concepts. For that purpose, we may need a cylinder piston arrangement, and since we are discussing the ideal cases, suppose this is the cylinder fixed with a movable piston. So piston is movable. Since we are discussing the ideal cases, the side walls of the cylinder are perfectly insulating to avoid any heat loss, whereas the bottom of the cylinder is perfectly conducting. Further, this piston is perfectly frictionless. That is, while moving up and down, it does not require any work against the force of friction. That is, there is no dissipative forces present during the motion of the piston. Then we also require a heat reservoir which maintains itself at a constant temperature T1, which is going to act as a source. We also require another heat reservoir which maintains itself at constant temperature T2, which acts as a sink. And we require another platform which is non-conducting, perfectly non-conducting. Now with this basic information, let us try to see how a theoretical heat engine proposed by Carnot works. Now in the first, this is a 4-step process. Let us discuss it one by one. The first step deals with keeping the cylinder piston arrangement on the heat source and allowing the piston to move upwards. Now the parameters we are assuming for the working substance inside the cylinder piston arrangement are P1, V1 and T1, and this is the initial state represented by point A. We are also assuming that the working substance inside this cylinder is an ideal gas of 1 mole of quantity. All these are basic assumptions. Now since this is at temperature T1 and the gas is at temperature T1, when we allow the piston to move upwards and heat cannot pass through these non-conducting walls, since these walls and the piston as well as perfectly non-conducting, and the temperature of the source is constant at T1, during this entire process the temperature remains constant, and since the piston is moving upwards, the gas expands. Since the gas expands, its volume increases to say a value V2. So there is an increase in volume. At the same time, we require that the pressure is going to decrease to some value P2. Now if we represent this process on a PV diagram, where pressure is on x-axis and volume is on y-axis, suppose this is point A with parameters P1, V1, T1. Now this gas goes through a process of expansion with constant temperature. In technical terms, we call it as isothermal expansion. So the pressure decreases and volume increases at constant temperature T1, and say gas reaches at some point B with parameters P2, V2 and T1. We note that the temperatures are still the same because the process is isothermal. Let us just draw this axis somewhere else. Now in the next step, this source is removed and the cylinder piston arrangement is kept on the non-conducting platform, and the piston is again allowed to further move upwards so that gas further expands. Now we note that the temperature of the gas is T1. Since platform is perfectly non-conducting, the piston and the cylinder are non-conducting, heat cannot move outside the system, neither the heat can enter the system. So if this gas is to expand, the energy required for this expansion is utilized from the internal energy available inside the gas. Since the internal energy is utilized, the temperature of the gas is reduced. So the temperature reaches from some higher value T1 to some lower value T2. Now this process of decrease in temperature does not involve any heat exchange, and since heat exchange is absent, this process is called as adiabatic, and since the gas expands, it is an expansion process. So from B we move to some other point, say C, when parameters are some P3, V3 and T2. Now the temperature has decreased to a new value T2. In the third process, this platform is removed again and the cylinder piston arrangement is kept in contact with the other reservoir, which is called as sink, and kept at temperature T2. Remember that gas has already reached a temperature T2. Now in this process, the piston is allowed to move downwards. That is, this process is now going to be, if we compare with this term, this process is now going to be isothermal compression. Isothermal compression. As a result of compression, the volume of the gas decreases while the temperature is kept constant. Since volume decreases from V3 to some other value, say V4, correspondingly the pressure P3 must increase to some other value P4. So on the graph we can draw it like this. The system reaches to a new point D, which is having parameters say P4, V4, and the temperature is fixed at T2 since the process is isothermal. In the last step, this sink is removed and the cylinder piston arrangement is again kept in contact with the non-conducting platform, and the piston is allowed to move further downwards. Since the temperature is T2 and the piston is moving downwards and all these elements are perfectly non-conducting, that is, the heat cannot enter the system, neither the heat can leave the system. As a result of this compression carried out adiabatically, the gas heats up and the piston is moved downward till the temperature increases from T2 back to T1, which was the original temperature when we started our discussion at point A. When the temperature reaches T1, the gas must have, or the system must have reached the state A again with parameters P1, V1 and T1. We note that this is a four-step process. In one adiabatic expansion, one isothermal expansion, one adiabatic expansion, one isothermal adiabatic compression, and one isothermal compression. And the system reaches the original state A with which it started. So this is a cyclic process. Now we can assign or calculate the works involved in each of these processes, say W1, W2, W3 and W4, and we can determine an expression for the efficiency of this engine, which we will discuss in the next topic or next video.